And welcome to the new, upgraded, and improved Behind the Mic podcast. This is a long time coming, man. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I put it out into the universe, and being the person that I am, I run across a lot of people in the world, and so I want to give a big shout out to Vincent Maselli, because he's the one that put the wheels in motion to get me in this space at Soyo Creative to start this new joint venture with this podcast. And I wanted the first episode to be an epic one. And the first person that came to my mind is my boy, Frank Voce. Now, before Frank gets talking, I want to give you a little intro on how I met this guy. I met this dude through a friend and a coworker of mine. I guess Frank had a conversation with Lamar, and he goes, "Yo, man, there's this dude that I know. He's kind of got the same mission statement that you got. I know you guys are both looking to help one another." So Frank reaches out to me. I don't know this guy from a can of paint, and we instantly clicked. And my life has not been the same since. So for those of you who don't know who Frank Voce is, Frank and I do a podcast called Inside the Lab, and we have interviewed, megastars. Rest in peace to John Meadows, Brian Shaw, Matt Chan, and the list goes on. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend, my brother, Frank Voce. What's good, kid?
Thank you, good. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me here. And I was going to bring that up. I remember like it was yesterday. It was 2020.
23 years.
Lamar gave me the contact. And I'm like, all right, And I was literally driving over to TZ Bridge when we had the conversation. And I told you a little bit about the mission statement for reps and responders, a little bit about what I was going through. And you're like, I'm in. And ever since then, the bond we created, and I really appreciate the kind words, man, right there.
1000%, bro.
A little sentimental here, but my life hasn't been the same either. We've not only have we interviewed, we've had some hard training sessions together. We've talked about a lot of real life situations, and since that, probably March of 2020, maybe a little after spring of 2020. a family friend to a family friend was like, try to get you into Manhattan. So I'm waiting in the academy when they give you your precincts.
Yeah.
And I tell all my friends, like,
That wish list is bullshit too, by the way.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to Manhattan. And they're like, all right, Officer Voce, 42nd precinct. Everyone starts dying laughing. Like, 4-2, where the hell is that? Like, you're going to South Bronx, man, right by Yankee Stadium. I'm like, oh shit, that's not Manhattan.
That's not Manhattan. That's far from it.
So I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And when I first got there, I was kind of just like, shit, man. And I think either the cops have this thought or they don't have this thought. There's no like in between. I feel like and I think a lot more cops have it. And I think it's natural if you're listening, if you're a newer cop or if you're a veteran. Is when we first got there, it's kind of like, damn, do I want to do this? Is this for me? Like, this is not kind of like how I thought it was going to be type of deal.
Yeah.
Being in a very rough neighborhood too. So I gave it time. Then I got a good partner. And
Good partner's key.
And then I started to feel a lot more comfortable. And I was like, damn, like, I'm out of Rockland County, this suburb population. And I'm in the city. I'm in like the melting pot. And I'm learning a lot more about different cultures, different religions. And I'm learning more about people. And I really like that. So I would go to work, I would come home, and I was pretty good there at leaving work once you cross the bridge. So I had 2.5 years on, and then I ended up taking the test to go to Rockland County. And I was kind of just like, all right, I'm out. Throw up the middle finger, like, FNYPD, I'm out, blah, blah, blah. Because when you're young, everyone's right away, even back then in 2015, like, job's dead, you got to get out, you got to leave, this place sucks, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, the job never really did anything to me at all. So I was like living through other people at that time of like, oh yeah, they're right. I got to get out of here. Like this is not what you want to do. All right. So I took the test, did very well. And then in 2018, I got into Rockland County. And when I got into Rockland County, that's when my whole world turned upside down, kind of like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
The upside down.
So I'm going to pause it for a second there. So the department that he was gainfully employed by at the time, right when you transferred over to, this is a big money department. So I know naturally people were like, I want them bigger and better things, right? These guys make massive amounts of money. So like naturally we as police officers, we think like, damn bro, like this dude just went over to greener pastures, right? I'm going to go make some money and, do my 20 years. Beef up that deferred comp, beef up that pension, and my life's gonna be great. And so Frank's story didn't really go that way, right? So now we can pick up again. So I'm just gonna kind of like jump in and narrate from time to time. I don't want to feel like I'm cutting you off, but I want to set the tone for our listeners so they can really understand. Because the only reason why I even preface that whole, that statement is because more money doesn't necessarily mean greener pastures, but continue.
So yeah, we're gonna get pretty raw here, and like November is all about Movember, right? Men's mental health.
Men's mental health, exactly.
Speaking a lot about that. So I get there now. I'm 25, right? I'm 25 years old.
Strapping young lad.
I made it, right? Got the girl. Made it to the town. Jason was saying, more money, closer to home, safer. Like all my goals that I pictured in my mind are coming true. Like all this is great. Like, so I got there, and in the first few months, I started feeling weird. I started feeling like my world closing in, my throat closing, heart rate beating faster, sweating, and I'm like, yo, what the hell is going on? Like college football, right? Powerlifting, making all my goals, and I'm saying all this stuff because what I'm explaining right there, I don't like this word, all right, the stigma, panic attack, really a fight or flight syndrome, right? That's what was happening, but I had no idea how it was happening. I had no idea that existed.
Yeah.
At 25, I'm like, how could you be depressed? Life is so good.
Yeah.
Depression isn't real. It's BS. And that's what was happening to me. And I couldn't get out of my own head of, do I want to do solo patrol for 20 years where I grew up, and I just felt like I couldn't escape. And
Gotcha.
I was overthinking. But I'm a cop. How could I tell you, right? If you're my coworker, what I'm going through, I'll lose my gun, I'll lose my shield, my life is over. And that thought process then is, if I'm not a cop, then what else am I in life?
I hear that.
That mentality that now, but everything that, you know, over the experience, we hear that so much still today.
Mm-hmm.
So the song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Right? That was my theme song every single day. Should I stay in this department or do I go back to the city? But then again, who goes back once they leave, right? Then you're looked at as crazy.
Yeah, because you know how, you know, cops are pretty brutal to one another, right? So, you know, if you decide to come back, like, what's the thought process then? Oh, Frank's got to be crazy, he's giving up.
Yeah.
And they leaving, you know, millions of dollars on the table if you really think about it, right?
Right.
You know, so I know that was probably pending in the back of your mind. So, you know, walk us through that whole, all right, I'm going back.
So it got really dark. So I ended up hanging out with Jack and Jose, Jack Daniels and Jose
Cuervo, yeah.
And before that, my drinking was drink on your RDOs, drink on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue with me was when I started, I could never stop. So if me and Jason are gonna, like, Jay's like, yo, let's go have a few beers. In my head, I'm like, word. But in my head, I really knew, like, it ain't gonna be a few beers. Like, if he's like, let's just have a few beers for the game. Once the game's over at 4 o'clock, Jason's dipping, but I'm not leaving, I'm staying. Like, I already started. That's the kind of drink. So then I would drink. And then the guilt and shame is really big in Alcoholics Anonymous and people with substance abuse. And I was having that guilt and shame before I even knew what Alcoholics Anonymous was. And then I would take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, right? And then I would stop and then I'd feel better and I'll be like, okay, I can drink again. That was the previous. Now, when I was in 2018, I started finding myself drinking by myself, getting rid of social media, not hanging out with friends.
So like that, like attachment,
The
isolation,
depression, right? So those anxiety attacks came like left and right. It was like almost nonstop. So I was drinking to try to level that out so I didn't have to deal with that.
Okay.
Then one day, it's probably, I got there in January 2018. It's probably like the spring of 2018. I just woke up and everything was black and gray. And I'm like, fuck, man, here we are. This is what depression is, you know? Obviously, everything wasn't black and gray, but my perspective was.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it, and it's going to sound crazy. I just remember not feeling anything, like trying to squeeze my arm as hard as I can just to feel. My body just was like, Frank, you need a break, you need to stop. And like, I felt like my whole nervous system just shut off. Like I couldn't feel anything. So then the whole fight about seeing a mental health professional. So a few months went by, and then I was like, all right, but I can't let the job know. So I just pay cash, a lot of cash.
Oh, shit.
Through insurance, which is not true today. You can see a mental health professional through your insurance. The job actually now promotes that. They want that. But anyway, doing all that. And
let me just ask you a question. Do you think the job is a lot different now when it comes to mental health and seeking that help from now to like when you first started experiencing it? Because like I just know, like I've been a cop for 18 years, and the stigma of like getting rubber gunned, right? So I'm using cop jargon, but rubber gun is meaning that you don't have a firearm. You're, you know, reduced to some kind of like in-house position where you're not on the road. You're not like, you're a cop, but you're not really a cop. I know that has like changed so much. But as you're going through this, I know that was something that you were definitely thinking about. But my whole thing is like, what the hell was going through your mind when like, damn, you're paying out all this money? Was it like, yo, I'd rather pay cash than like have my gun taken from me? Was that like the mindset, or was it just like you just wanted to keep it under wraps? Because I'm
therapist. I got put on Zoloft, and then I was like, that's not working. And I got put on Wellbutrin, and then this person took like out of the drawer. It was like, I always say, it's like the movie The Departed. I felt like I was Leo, like pretending to be someone that you're not.
Yeah.
And here's Rexulti. So here's 5 different medications in the span of, I don't know, 4 months. Now I feel like I'm a lab rat, like I'm like a zombie, like a walking dead. Like I'm just getting messed with and just being experimented on. And I was like, well, I don't want to feel this way, so I'd rather just go and drink. So I would go off the medication, which you should not do, cold turkey, and start drinking, or drink on the medication. So it was like a battle back and forth.
I don't know what the fuck that is. Oh, go ahead, continue. I'm sorry. Sorry, there's something going on. I don't know if it was outside or fucking what, but go ahead, continue. I'm sorry. Just sounds like a buzzer or cricket or some shit. But go ahead, continue. I'm sorry, my brother. So switching medications and...
Yep, so all the medications, and then before I went back, so I pushed this hard to go back. Like, that's how bad, like I was saying, the anxiety was. I was calling like 1PP all the time. Like, I gotta get back, I gotta get back, I gotta get back. And then people in the job where I was across the bridge, like, you know, give it more time. Don't go back. You'll ruin your life. And I'm like, oh, fuck, maybe they're right. You know, but like...
So that set in.
Every time someone told me something different, if they're like, yo, put these 2 left shoes on, it'll be good. I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's a good idea. I know maybe I'll walk around with 2 left shoes. Like that, like, I couldn't make a decision at all. I was powerless over everything in my life.
So all of this is happening within like a year, because you have like a year, right?
10 months.
You have 10 months.
You have a year, but it happened in 10 months.
It happened in 10 months. All right. So in 10 months, you've switched all these medications. You've had this like suicidal ideation. And I'm going to be like 100% transparent. Like, I mean, I never openly spoke about this, but that has run across my mind in the dark times of my life. Right. So I think that's where I have, that bond with you. Because I remember we spoke about this before, and like I never like openly spoke about this like on a podcast or anything like that. Like I was in a dark place in my life, and I remember like that running through my head. And thank God I had like a family friend who put me in line to speak to somebody, and that's when I started my like therapy journey. And that was a pivotal moment in my life, because I was at a point where I was like dead set on taking my life. I had a plan, right? And I was gonna make it look like an accident, because I didn't want my family to think I quit. So I had this whole thing like drawn up, and it was gonna look like an accident, and like no one would have known the difference. But that would have been me ending my life and just getting rid of the pain. So I can relate to the numbness, the depression, the anxiety. I can relate to all of that because I've experienced those things, and I was in a space but couldn't identify what that was until I went and sat down with a mental health professional. So I just want to say, like, I thank you for sharing that, which is what brought me to share this publicly, because I never shared that with anybody on a public forum. You know, because so we are brothers in that, right? You know, not only in the fact that we are police officers, we are friends, but like that we went through those lows and we made it through the lows, and we're here sitting down as brothers and having this conversation, you know. But we had to get to a point where like we were broken in order to rebuild and get us back to where we're currently at, you know.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I didn't know that about you for a long time either, you know. So again, that goes to, you don't know. Everyone's going through something, but you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, everyone's story is just as important. It's just if you're willing to share it or not.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, more people have been in a similar experience like you, and how many people you can share. You just have to be the author of your own journey and publicize that book, which is your story. So fast forward it, I went through going through that, made a decision. I left 10 months in, made another year, right? Because when you leave, you have up to a year to come back.
Okay.
And went back to the city in November of 2018.
Okay, November 2018.
19, 20, 20, you know, five, this almost going on 5 years. November 2023. So go back, everyone was like, yo, what happened? It was that bad, blah, blah, blah. I said, it just wasn't for me. skinny as hell, just really, really bad. I felt like I was walking dead, right? Like soulless, like a sheet in the wind. And I'll never forget, there's just a lot of different God moments, but it was so bad that one day after work I left, and I don't even know if, again, I've never shared this. A lot of people I don't even know who knows this, but I ended up leaving the work, and it was Thanksgiving Eve of 2018, and I went to a hotel in the South Bronx by myself, and I was like, this is going to be it. And I told, my parents, like, oh, I have overtime, but they're smart, they know. They have overtime. Like, I wasn't even back on the street yet because they had to give me all my stuff. And, my mom was texting me all night and all this. And I just remember just staring at the wall up in the ceiling in this. I'm in the South Bronx in this shitty ass hotel, man. And I'm
holy shit, bro.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell am I doing? So I left. I got out. I made it. But the plan was to do something that you can't take back. So end up the end of November 2018. My girlfriend at the time left because she was getting really sick, right? We moved into an apartment together, and I'm thinking in my mind, that's going to fix everything. That's going to be great. It's going to make her happy. It's not going to make her worry about me. Terrible. Didn't even get us cable, barely get out of bed, barely clean the apartment, just like doing nothing.
Yeah.
So that didn't last. She left, and at the time, I'm like, wow, you're leaving me, but it was ended up being the best thing ever because she was getting really sick. And it's messed up in a psyche perspective. Is like she kind of was helping out so much, like she started playing like mother figure role.
Yeah.
And that's never good when you look at a significant other as like a mother figure or a father figure, right? So she left, and I'm like, wow, I'm really by myself. I did this all to myself, blah blah blah. And I did, but I also did the best I could with the tools that I've had because I always grew up in an alcoholic household.
Yeah.
So that's what I knew.
And that pattern kind of repeats itself, yeah.
That's what I knew. So I walked in New York Presbyterian in November 2018 voluntarily. The PBA rep came, took away my gun and my shield. And then I told them what was going on. They're like, we can help you sign this paper. I'm in Manhattan. I'm looking over, like, I'm in this, like, the side of this room, huge, by myself, glass window, looking over New York City. And it was like a little bliss moment. Like, I kind of felt like in the present moment. I'm like, all right, this is going to be good. Wake up next day. They're like, all right, I'm taking you to Westchester Center, New York Presbyterian. So then I get in the ambulance, and they're like, no, we got to strap you in. I'm like, what do you mean strap me in? Like, I don't need to be strapped in. Protocol, I wasn't going to fight it. Get to the center, start taking my shoelaces off, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Little did I know that it was the psych ward of New York Presbyterian in Westchester. So now I'm like, wow, I'm done. Like, and I couldn't leave because I told them, I don't care if I want to live or die.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm there for 2 weeks. I get out. So now I get put on another medication called Effexor. So now I'm just on Effexor. I get out, and I do like the Joker laugh. I'm like, I'm not better. What the hell? Like, this is crazy. So I go back in. So I'll never forget my roommate, Nick. This old Italian guy. I mean, this was like movie stuff, Jay. Like, bed side by side. This guy's speaking all night. I fall asleep to him. This guy was very smart. He can spit back like everything in the DSM-5. But he was a little out there, but fun guy. He's like, come on, Frank. Because when I told you psych ward, it was the doctors would come. They speak to you for 10 minutes, and you have 23 hours and 15 minutes to do like nothing. You have these little groups that were all like BS. We went outside twice a week to play basketball, 30 minutes a day, medication time.
It sounded like jail to me.
Phone, it was. And no one in there could know I was a cop because these are really sick people.
Yeah. You never know what they're capable of, yeah.
Schizophrenia. I would walk up and down one time with this girl in the hallway, blonde hair. She was a Russian lady, and she said, very smart, but she was like, you got to be careful what you say. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, they were listening. I'm like, who? They put a camera in my eye. They could see and hear everything right now. Bro, I'm being born serious. Head serious, man. So that's the type of, I was in it, man. I was in two birds of the cuckoo's nest, or yeah, I was in it. So I went back.
But that was kind of funny.
I'm going to try to speed this up. I went back, and I told them I was drinking. They're like, why didn't you tell us that in the first place? I'm like, I didn't know it was a big deal. They're like, here's this book. I'm like, all right. I'm like, damn, it's a big book. What's it called? They're like, the big book. I'm like, no, I know it's a big book. They're like, no, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm like, okay. Read the first part, doctor's opinion. And the only thing I got out of that, it took me so long to read it because I couldn't even like pay attention to anything, was in the doctor's opinion, it states that you have an allergic reaction to alcohol in your brain. So if you knew that you were allergic to apples, right, and you kept eating apples, what would happen? Your throat would close.
Yeah, you have some kind of anaphylaxis of some sort.
You have an allergic reaction where your body, your soul, whatever you want to say it, it doesn't. Back sent to the 4-2. I was there for 2 weeks. Like, oh, we're sending you to the Depth of Borough Bronx to BBX 1086 Simpson, the old Fort Apache.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ralph.
Shout out to Ralph Freeman.
So,
got to get him in here.
here we go again. Great. What is everyone going to think about me? Broken, misfits, all that, right?
Now, let me ask you a question just to kind of like spin off of that. When you got back to work, what was your interaction with your coworkers
Like at the 4-2?
at the 4-2?
They were pretty cool. I mean, they always knew me as like a very happy-go-lucky, like joking around guy, working out. So a lot of them didn't really, a lot of them always thought of me like that. Like they were very, I would say for the most part, supportive. Mm-hmm. Maybe a few people said that like you're crazy, but I mean, they're right. You know, I had to make the best decision for me.
Yeah, there was no shit on your lock or nothing like that, right? 'Cause you know how we do.
It wasn't too bad at all, actually. And that was a little easier for me.
Okay.
So then DBBX, I was there for a long time. I was there for years. And then I had a great idea, summer of 2019. I'll only drink at Yankee games at the Jersey Shore where no one will know who I am.
Oh, shit.
That didn't last very long. That's the alcoholic part of my thinking, you know? Like, come on, Frank. Like, you're feeling a little better now. You did all this hard work. you could still party a little bit. Like, yeah, you know what? This guy's right, you know? And then that didn't last. And September, so Christina ended up coming back into my life, and she heard I was like getting sober, trying to get sober, whatever. So then we just like slow little things together. If we went for a 20-minute walk, if we like got coffee, whatever. At least she was like still showing face, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her to go to a wedding with me, and she said yes. I'm like, oh, not gonna drink, not gonna drink, not gonna drink. Walk into the wedding, the reception, waterfall full of Ciroc, game over. I wake up the next day. Shit, how did I get home? Christina drove home, blacked out.
Oh, man.
We went to the dog park, and after that, that's when my spiritual awakening happened, I would say, right there, that pivotal moment where she was like, I don't know why you're doing this to yourself. You still have your job, your friends. I just came back into your life. I'm about to leave. Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, I'm this close to leaving again, and like for good. Like, I want nothing to fucking do with you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm done talking about it. Like, I'm going to go to a meeting tonight. And she was just like pissed off, whatever. And she said, okay. Then I went to that meeting. And then the next day I went to that meeting. And the next day I went to that meeting. And 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 then got more involved in the fellowship, therapy. And then 2019, 10 officers had lost their life to suicide, NYPD. And I was like, and it's still 2019, you know? So I'm like, I was this close to being number 11. And like, no one knew. No one knows. Because everyone's like, oh, you're going back, you're crazy. But no one knew, like, the reason why I went back was to really save my life. Because if I didn't go back, I'd probably have a high probability that I would be here right now. So I'm like, damn, what is the job? What's going on? What is the job doing? Kind of like what a lot of people are thinking. So I curved that addiction into researching mental health, researching first responder statistics. And it like lit a fire under my ass. I was like really angry. And I was pissed off. I was angry. I wasn't happy on how the job was dealing with me, because I would go in there, it'd be 15 minutes, the same questions every time, and that's it.
Uh-huh.
I had letters from 13 different supervisors, captain, chief, lieutenant, sergeants, of like a good guy letter. They're trying to like back me up to say like, listen, he just went through a hard time, you know? Like I was really, it was like, it felt messed up that I had to convince these people that I was going through a hard time and that I wasn't like psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tough because I wasn't psychotic. And then January of 2020 was supposed to be my final interview with the NYPD doctors, the psychological unit, PES. And I was like 4 months sober at the time. And I got a phone call 2 hours before my final interview. And they said, sorry to tell you, but your doctor left the department. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, she left, she got another job. Okay.
So you start back at square one?
What does that mean? I said, listen, I'm a really nice guy, but this is 2 hours before, like, am I going to keep my job or not? I'm like, this has been like a crazy, a year and a half. We're sorry, it's a mistake up on the higher up end. We'll give you a call in 2 weeks. That 2 weeks turned into 8 months, Trey. Nobody in the department ever reached out to me. But that was the start of like, to really push through rep for responders, because it was just like an idea then.
Yeah.
And that was like, all right, now it's like game on. Because if they don't care, that's how I felt. Who's going to care? So at that time too, November of 2019, my father was a big drinker, went to the same rehab I did. He went to High Watch.
Okay.
And I convinced him to go. And I told him he was going through a hard time. He had alcoholic acidosis, which means that your organs are actually shutting down from alcohol. So I said, listen, I'm never going to leave you, because I understand it. I get it. But Mom and Chris, my brother, they can leave at any time. I don't want to have to go to the county and get a mental health warrant to mandate you to go to rehab, because you're a danger to yourself. You're drinking and driving. You're depressed. And you know what he said? It was like $27. So you want to go to outpatient? I'll go. Like, no, you need inpatient. He goes, okay, I'll go. But why did you say, okay, I'll go? Because he grew up in the town for 50 years. He didn't want anyone to know. And he was mandated to go and get help. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. Right? The guilt and shame.
Going back to what are people going to think if I got mandated to go to rehab? I'd rather just disappear on my own. He went, and now he's going to be 4 years sober, dude, in like a few weeks this November. I don't even know what's sober.
For your dad on the news as well.
Oh, he's a mover and groover, man. He down.
What did he get? He got some organ, right?
Yeah, what?
He got an organ transplant.
Yeah, he had a kidney transplant.
Kidney transplant. That's what it was.
Had,
I was at work, and I'm like looking at the TV. I'm like, oh, that's Frank's dad.
Yeah, he had renal failure. That guy's always on Channel 12 or Channel 5. Every time he sees the news, he wants to go in and speak. He's just he's a funny guy. But so that happened, and then that's how Rep First Responders was created.
So I want to spin that into some mental health statistics that my boy Frank brought, in honor of Men's Mental Health Month. I wanted to show the people what men actually deal with, when it comes to mental health, right? So, rattle off some of these notes.
So my man Jay, I'm going to spit them out. Tell me, pause. You tell me whatever you want, right? Hopefully I can read my own handwriting. All right, so 30. This is again because of Movember, right? 31% of men in their lifetime suffer from depression, have one depressive episode. 31% of men. 10% of men experience depression, anxiety, but less.
Oh, we knew that was going to happen.
Someone got pissed about that statistic.
This guy telling us something. That's all.
So 10% of men experience depression. So when we said 31% of men will have a depressive episode in their lifetime, but it says 10% of men experience depression/anxiety, but less than half will receive treatment. Men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women.
So I'm going to stop you right there. I was watching, something came across my timeline, right? And it was Caleb Williams from USC. When they lost to University of Washington, there's a clip of him climbing into the stands, hugging his mother, and just sobbing, crying. And I watched a clip of this woman just destroy this young man. And my new toxic trait is I run through comments. I start reading comments. And when I'm telling you, men stepped up, and they stepped up in such a light that it kind of opened up my eyes to certain things. You just mentioned that. Like, we're taught as men to like brush things off, and you just gotta, rub some dirt on it, pick your chin up, poke your chest out, and keep pushing forward. At what point does it stop? At what point does the cup fill to a point where it can no longer contain what it has? And then there's an outburst of either you hurting yourself or hurting someone else. And that was like a trigger for me. You know what I'm saying? As you know, I coach high school football, and my boys lost their semifinal game in the last 38 seconds on like the 8-yard line, and these kids were devastated. And there wasn't a dry eye on that field that night. And I want to tell men out there that it doesn't make you less of a man when you cry. There's a time and there's a place that emotions run to a point where they have to go somewhere. And I'd rather it be tears than bullets, or stabbing someone, or you bludgeoning someone to death. So I want to make that very clear, that men, it is okay to shed a tear. All right. The stigma, we got to be tough and all of that. Yeah. We're supposed to be providers, protectors, but at the same time, we're human. And I think, as men, we have to understand that space. So that statistic there really strikes out to me. So just thank you for sharing that. And I want our listeners to understand that, because there's a lot of young men that listen to this podcast. Like, I get young guys reach out to me all the time. Continuing to keep
it's a human reaction, to an emotion. So why depress yourself even more, right? Happy tears or sad tears is because you're happy something's happening, or something means so much to you that it's a grieving process that you're losing it, like a game even I remember my senior year of football, the season was over. It was blowing my eyes out. So I know I'll never get that back. So I flipped the page here because to talk about that statistic on suicide, I have it here more. So men are 4 more times likely, right, to lose their life to suicide. But women attempt suicide more than men. But men are more likely to complete this. So why is that?
What is that?
Use methods likely to cause death. A gun. May act more impulsively on suicidal ideations. Show fewer warning signs. So those are 3 reasons why they complete it more.
See, I can see that being applicable because we're taught to not show weakness, right, or express that we're going through stuff.
Get help.
Yeah, and it goes back to you mentioning that the shame and the guilt of like asking for help.
It's like that impulsiveness is kind of like if you're feeling that way, right? But it's like going to the end instead of like working on the steps to try to fight it. It's like, well, I'm feeling like this way. I shouldn't feel this way. So let me just end it all. But you need to put any of the work in to combat that.
Yeah.
It shows that it's really not the answer. It's not. But unfortunately for some people it is.
Yeah, man.
Which is the truth, which I don't like saying.
Just the other day I read 4 LA County sheriffs committed suicide in like less than 24 hours. So this is, something that is a serious issue in our country, especially now in policing. And, if anyone that's out there that listens to this podcast and it is a first responder, go out there, get help. This is something that, it's turning into a real situation. And there are places you can go to. There's hotlines. There's, most departments have an EAP program where, you have peer support. And you have to understand that we see things that humans shouldn't see. This is firefighters, EMTs, police officers. We deal with the worst of the worst, and we don't unpack these things, and sometimes, after working a 24, if you're a firefighter, or working a 10 or 12 or 8 hour, or however many hour shift as a police officer, you got to unpack some of these things. So sitting down with a loved one or maybe a professional, whatever is easier for you, unpack that and, take care of it, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't possibly take care of anybody else around you. You know what I'm saying? This conversation was very much so enlightening. You shared some things, I shared some things with you that you didn't know. I found out some things that I know about you. And, for the people who follow us, they know that we go back some years now. And I just want to remind these guys that November 19th, we have a Reps for Responders open gym at Impact Zone in New Jersey.
Yep.
Right. What time we starting?
10 to 1.
10 to 1. It'll be there. It'll be square. I will be there, supporting my brother, supporting the movement, supporting the cause. Listen, if anybody out there who's listening or is watching, if you have any issues or anything, feel free to either reach out to myself or Frank, especially if you're in the first responder space. If you're a family member of a first responder, reach out, hit us up. We're more than willing to put you in line with some people who can help you. But I just want to say thank you for having this conversation with me, Frank.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate you, the vulnerability and just the transparency you had in this conversation, man. And we got some big things coming too. With inside the lab, we're working on some new things. So
just a start.
Just anybody who's tapped into myself and Frank and Reps for Responders, we appreciate you, Frank, man. I love you, bro. Appreciate you sitting down and having this conversation.
Absolutely.
So from us,
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, dude. Yeah,
really quick.
Absolutely.
So for everyone who just listened, thank you. But just remember, is suicidal training tip awareness, right? Is most people just want to be listened. They want to be heard. Ask the question, listen, encourage, follow up. Because everything I just said, right, it's half of my story, but a lot of beautiful things has happened. I'll be promoted as a sergeant next year. I'm still a cop after all, in the psych ward. right? I'm still a cop. I'm still a cop today. I'm back in the 42nd patrolling, and there's a lot more people that are rooting for you, a lot more people that want to help you, but no one, like my father always says, and we'll wrap up, if you tell me the truth, I can help you. If you don't tell me the truth, I can't help you. So whatever you're going through, it will not last forever, only if you let it. We have a lot more power than we think. Look at your feet. Jason, I appreciate you, man. Hit us up. Retro Responders, we're here to help. The Real Jumpman Jay. We're live, baby.
All right, man. Thank you, man.